Hello YouTube, this is HVKC Modding again with another video for you guys. This is actually a tutorial on how to reset glitch hack or RGH your slim Xbox 360. I will be making a how to RGH your fat Xbox 360 later, but for now this is going to be a multi-part tutorial. I'm not exactly sure how many parts because I don't know which ones. I don't know whether I'm going to combine programming and soldering to the Xbox together or not, but anyways, okay. Well, basically you're going to need a few things, and basically, like I said, you're gonna need a few things, and I have them laid out for you guys already. So the first things, the things you're gonna need are a soldering iron. 40 watt is amazing. This is a 15 switchable 15 to 30 watt. Works well, does the job. You're gonna need some solder, obviously. Don't use lead-free solder for whatever reason, it doesn't work. And today the macro on my camera just doesn't feel like working correctly. There we go. Now okay, now you're going to need some flux, any kind of flux as long as it's solder flux. I just had this, but pretty much you can go up to Radio Shack or any hardware store and buy some flux. You're going to need some rubbing alcohol. This is 91%. I hear that 99% is best, but I've used the 91% and 70%, and they all work pretty well. I need some Q-tips for spreading the flux on it and cleaning later. Dixie cup to I'll pour the rubbing alcohol into, so I have a place to put it. Some wire cutters or scissors, as you can see. You're going to need a ruler for measuring out one of the wires, which actually is you only need the ruler to measure out one of the wires if you have one of these 50 ohm low loss double shielded wires. I got it in a kit, or I got in a combo. It came with this quick solder, this QSB, slim post QSB. Let's see if I can get the macro to work. It's probably not going to work. It hasn't been working lately. Let's try and do it again. No. Oh well, but anyways, what it does is it mimics the one of the wires. It mimics this really long blue wire. That black wire is actually going in place of that. If you don't have that black wire, you cut your blue wire and you set it up with this. But anyways, so I also have the Nandex QSB cable for the soldering to the NAND stuff, reading to the NAND, and you know, with your Nandex. Let's try and get this to work. And, oh well, macro's not going to work today. So, well, if you have all that, you got your Cool Runner. Oh, dropped it. Got your Cool Runner board. On your Cool Runner board, try and get this to work. For whatever reason, my camera doesn't want to let the macro work. Anyways, if you can see, there's a switch here and there's a switch here. If I could get the macro working, then I'd be able to show you what they say. See if it goes. No. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Okay. Well, if you can see that, yeah, you can see that. you have your switch. It's got the switch right here. It switches between what type of console you have. Says, see how it says slim and it says fat. Switch it to fat or slim. And then up here the switch says NOR or PRG, standing for normal or program mode. Normal program mode. Since in these sets of tutorials I'm going to have it set to program mode while I'm programming it, and I'm going to have it set to slim because it's a slim console. If you have a fat console, you switch over to fat. And then when you're running the Cool Runner actually in the slim and you know it's working, you set it to program, or you set it to normal, sorry. And I've heard that if you want to increase your boot times and make them better on the slim, you switch it to fat mode, and it helps with the boot times on it. But I'm gonna keep it at slim for now. This is where you plug in your Nandex to Cool Runner programming cable, or if you're not using that, if you're not using a Nandex, you need one of these. It's a LPT cable, and I got it in a bundle with the Cool Runner and the quick solder board, but you're not going to need that for this tutorial right now, actually, for this video I should say. But other than that, if I can get this macro working correctly, then I'll show you this board. I kind of wanted to show you the board, but this is the quick solder board that came with this. So anyways, it's not going to work. Well, let's get started. So first thing you need to do is take some of your flux. I'll open it up. Flux smells kind of bad, but oh well. Take your Q-tip. Get some flux on your Q-tip. Doesn't need to be a ton. Cable. Okay. And then you are going to put flux on. Hang on. Sorry about that. You are going to put flux on all of these points right here. I already tinned all the points and put flux on it, but I'll do it again just for the sake of this tutorial. I need to do it anyways, I guess. For whatever reason, my macro on my camera just doesn't work. Doesn't like to work all the time. Oh well, doesn't matter. Anyways, you just take your Q-tip and you put some flux on it. You know, put some flux on all the points here. Once you do that, set this down, and you can put that over there. Whatever. So let's get a bit better angle. Okay. Now here you have some wires. You got your yellow, your red, which is your power. You got your ground. You got this is the fat black one that I'm using in replacement for this blue one. You have a brown. I don't know how well you can see that. You have a orange and you have a green. Okay. So this is what it's going to be. Once you put flux on all your points, you're going to tin all the points. Tin means you put solder on each of the points, so you basically take some solder and you take an iron and you just put some solder on each of that. On each of the points. And you make it all nice and shiny. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to start with my red wire. Right here. Take your red wire and you solder it to the point labeled 3v3 on the board. From here. Okay. You should have it soldered to the point. Go. Now you take your thin black wire, well, only if you're using, your thin black wire, and you solder it to the point labeled ground. Okay. And then from here, you take your orange wire, you skip point A, because point A is not used for slim, only for fats, and you take your orange wire and you solder it to point B on the board. Next, you take the yellow wire right here and you solder it to point C on the board. Next, you take either this big black wire, and what you do is, or this is only this part that I'm telling you now is only if you have this post QSB. If you don't have it, then don't cut it. Okay, but if you have if you don't have this black wire here, you're going to take this blue wire here, and you're going to measure it out to 8 centimeters long, and then you're going to cut it and strip both ends. Remember, like I said, that's only if you have that post QSB. If you don't, then just take this blue wire that it comes with and just use the length of it and then coil it up onto the board, you know, whatever. But after that, just take this point, you take this one and you solder it to point D on the board. Okay. That, now you take your green wire, I don't know if you can see that, and you solder it to point E on the board. I'm trying to look which side I'm using for. Okay. Now you take your brown wire, you solder it to point F on the board. Okay. Once you're done with that, take some rubbing alcohol, and I'm using a Dixie cup. You can use whatever kind of container you want. You only need a tiny bit. Take a Q-tip, dip it in your rubbing alcohol, and then you clean off your cool runner board of all the of all the flux. And once it's all cleaned off, looking nice. Well, guess what? You're done soldering the points to the cool runner. Okay. From here, you can. I'm going to post a tutorial on how to actually do the hack itself. And when you're done, it should look like that. All the wires soldered in like this. Now remember, you may or may not have this black cable here, but if you don't, use that blue wire. But then from here, after this tutorial, I will post a tutorial on how to actually solder this to the main board. Okay, so as always, rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.